The Noughties were nice for Australian football, the most important decade in the history of the game in this country. A hoodoo was ended in stunning fashion, a National League was put to the sword and then resurrected with amazing results. But to enjoy a journey is to remember where it all began. The start of the decade began in Brazil, with South Melbourne taking on the likes of Manchester United and Vasco da Gama at the Club World Cup. No wins for Ange Postecoglou's men, but plenty of respectability. The 2000 NSL Grand Final is regarded by many as the greatest club game to be played in this country. Perth raced to a 3-0 lead, only for Wollongong to fight back and send the match to penalties.
Ascos against Pagliacomi. Saved! That's it!
In Europe, Harry Kewell was firing for his side Leeds United, who also acquired Harry's Socceroos teammate Mark Viduka from Celtic. Viduka's name forever cheered by the Ellen Road faithful following his 4-goal haul against Liverpool.
It's Viduka, he's onside. Has he got more? He has. What a moment, what a day.
On the national front, the high point was a 3-0 win over Hungary in Budapest.
Loose ball, a second goal for Australia.
But a month later, they had 3 put past them by a very strong Czech Republic outfit.
Australia stretched, a good cross. A very good goal indeed by Jan Gola.
The Socceroos finished the year with another strong win in Europe. Brett Emerton and David Zrilic scoring in a 2-0 win over Scotland at Hampden Park. 2001 shaped as a vital year, with World Cup qualification in the offing. The Oceania qualifiers provided plenty of headlines, with firstly 22 goals put past a hapless Tonga. But that was nothing on the 31 times they found the net against American Samoa. That was a world record, as was the 13 goals for Archie Thompson. The record result grabbing international headlines.
They're not good enough, and we've got to think seriously about whether these teams, even though they're in FIFA, are allowed to play in the World Cup.
More headlines for Australia at the Confederations Cup when the unheralded Socceroos knocked off the world champions. Their next match was against a Gus Hiddink-led South Korea, but this time they were on the end of a 1-0 loss. A loss to Japan as well in the monsoonal rains of Yokohama set up a third-place playoff against Brazil. And once again, the Socceroos defied the odds.
Oh, and Australia have scored. They have got their goal.
In the next stage of World Cup qualifiers, Australia had to get past New Zealand before a match-up with the 5th-place South Americans. The All Whites beaten home and away, and next stop it was Uruguay. The Australians warmed up for that match with a 1-1 draw against France. Kevin Muscat showing plenty of esprit de corps. 9 days later, and it was the one that counted, Uruguay for a spot in the World Cup. Muscat turned villain to hero with the penalty and the only goal from the first leg.
As I said, there's still 9 minutes to go.
Muscat applied the polish at the MCG, but at Montevideo Airport, it was the Uruguayan fans supplying the spit. The shock of that airport introduction seemed to carry over onto the field. A dark day for Australian football and more heartache for the Socceroos. The 27-year World Cup qualification hoodoo continued.
And another stake has been hammered through the heart of Australian soccer. It was that familiar, sickly feeling.
The home front didn't provide any relief from the heartache, with crowd trouble sending the NSL spiralling to new lows. Wollongong made it back-to-back titles with a win over South Melbourne. 2002 began with some seemingly good news. FIFA President Sepp Blatter awarding Oceania automatic qualification to the World Cup. Sydney Olympic won the national title with a win over Perth in the West. 2 months later, Australian football plummeted to new depths at the Confederations Cup qualifier in New Zealand. A makeshift Socceroos side beaten by the All Whites, leaving everyone red-faced and looking for answers.
Can't get any lower than where we are at the moment. It's pretty much in disarray at the moment.
What happens now? When does the team play next? What happens after we lost to Uruguay? Where was the plan? There isn't one.
Soccer Australia are so impotent at the moment that they're not in a position to, buy a cut lunch.
Well, as Neville Rand said to me, who was my predecessor, he said it's basically ungovernable. I think that is right from my observation over 12 months.
This clean-out, this reform needs to be done, but it may be that you're going to miss a year.
As it proved, the former Victorian Premier was a couple of years ahead of himself. 2003 began with new hope. Australia upsetting the old enemy on their turf. One of the great wins in the history of Australian football.
Kuhl has got the better of Ferdinand. He's in for number 2 here for the Socceroos. Harry Kuhl. It gets better and better for Australia.
If you're England, you shouldn't lose in football against Australia. And we did it. Anyhow, I think we are a better team than them.
8 days later, joy turned to sorrow following the death of former Socceroos coach Eddie Thompson. The Crawford report was handed down detailing alleged impropriety at football's highest levels. Recommendations for the disbanding of the current setup.
Under the structure, at the moment, you can't do anything. So this is freeing that structure up so we can get on and the executives can run the game and take it to a potential in this country which is not even scratched yet.
Perth finally broke through for a National Soccer League title with a revenge victory over Sydney Olympic. Then 16 months after handing Oceania a guaranteed World Cup spot, FIFA took it back.
The truth is we've been used as sort of political fodder to get some bloke elected, and 6 months later we just do a double twisting somersault.
The sands of change began in July. Billionaire businessman Frank Lowy seized control of Soccer Australia and began to change things. On the national front, it was a quiet year, with the Socceroos losing to Ireland in Dublin, but then beating Jamaica in London.
Through for Kuhl. On goal. Harry with the keeper to beat. Oh, that is brilliant.
Harry Kuhl getting his name on the score sheet just a month after moving from Leeds to Liverpool in the English Premier League. 2004, and more change at the top of the game's governing body. Former rugby union boss John O'Neill signing on as chief executive.
We used to say if ever they get their act together, we're in big trouble.
Australia warmed up for a potential World Cup clash against a South American nation with a 1-1 draw in Venezuela. In March, they squared off with South Africa in London. Mark Bresciano's goal separating the sides. That match notable for a much-anticipated Australian debut for Tim Cahill. Just weeks later, he played for Millwall in the FA Cup final. The Socceroos returned home for the first time in nearly 3 years. A 2-match series with Turkey when there was more red than gold in the crowd. Qualification for the World Cup in Germany began in, of all places, Adelaide. No double-figure scorelines this time, but a 9-0 win over Tahiti and a first goal for Cahill.
It's obviously my first start, and it's just brilliant to be out there with the lads, and to get a couple of goals is an absolute bonus, but I'm really happy with it, yeah.
A 6-0 demolition of the Solomon Islands confirmed a spot in the 2005 Confederations Cup. On the domestic front, Perth defied some atrocious conditions to win the last ever NSL title. In November, the A-League was launched and a new beginning was promised.
We've gone back and checked off undercapitalisation of the clubs, fixed. Undercapitalisation of the league, fixed. No television, fixed. No sponsorship, fixed. No centralised marketing and promotion, fixed.
6 days later, Australian football wept and wept following the death of the much-loved Johnny Warren.
He was such a passionate man, a great advocate for the game, probably our greatest ever ambassador, so he's an enormous loss.
He'll be remembered as a person who contributed over a long period of time and just had credibility with everything he did.
The name Johnny Warren is just football to everyone in this country, and he's certainly the biggest thing this code has ever had. But we've still got him. I think he said, when he goes to the football ground in the sky, look, he's up there. He's in that football ground, and I'm sure he's captain.
2005 was Australia's moving year. It began quietly enough, an away draw in South Africa, with Scott Chipperfield scoring and Jason Kalina making his debut. Back home,